In business, complexity kills growth while simplicity scales. G'day, guys. It's Pete here from Clinic Mastery, and today we're going to be talking about how to make your clinic more simple so that it can scale better, faster, and with less stress. So before we get into it, as always, please like and subscribe. It helps us to reach more people and to create a bigger impact. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, today, let's keep it short, sharp, and shiny. But think of this, right? In your clinic, what have you added? Because you hit a plateau, what have you added in order to achieve more growth? Now, for some clinic owners that I talk to, they add another service. So let's say that they're a physio clinic, they decide let's add massage or let's add EP. You may be a peds clinic, you may be OT, speech psych, and you add one or more of the other disciplines. Now, that is fantastic if your goal is to create a multidisciplinary clinic. But we have to come back to what is the goal or what is the vision? Okay, because I don't want to tell people not to do that, but I want you to understand why you're making those decisions and what is the impact that making those decisions has on your life as a clinic owner and has on the clinic's growth overall. Now, a quick story. I was working with they're an OT clinic owner, and they built out into speech and psychology as well. Now, in particular, we're going to be talking about this psychology component of their business here. Now, as an OT, they were obviously very good at mentoring their OT team. They had a senior speechie that they brought on, and they were able to have two senior speechies and then build up a little bit of a younger team there. Then they had a senior psychologist, and they built up a team of three psychologists under the senior. The challenge was we lost, or they lost, the psychologist, the senior psychologist. And when we lost the senior psychologist, we ended up losing the rest of the psychology team because they had no one to supervise and to mentor them, and they couldn't replace that senior psychologist fast enough. So I hope you can see here, it created all of these other challenges, all of these other problems for them, in that there was so much complexity involved in it. And due to the recruitment market, we couldn't have that second senior psychologist there. They'd tried for quite a while, and it just was really tough at that stage. So what happened? They lost a huge chunk of the business basically overnight because of this added complexity and not having essentially the available recruits there to bring in and to fulfill those roles. Now, it's not to say don't do that, but this is an example of where they added complexity. And then when we came back to their why, we looked at why do we add the psychology component into that? And it was because at the time, they just had the right psychologists come along. They were trying to grow the business overall, the revenue and the profitability. And the OT side, they didn't have any recruits available. So it seemed like the easiest option at the time, but they didn't foresee the added complexity that it would add to the business. So when we went back to their vision and their why, before we made the next move, we had to really evaluate where did they want to go, right? What was really driving this? Because if they want to have this multi-D clinic was what was driving it, then we really needed to look at hire another psychology team, essentially. However, if that was done initially through convenience and then as a way to increase revenue, but it wasn't the driving factor, then we need to shift away from that and focus on the things that they were already doing really well. And for this clinic owner, the OT and speech side of the team had maximum simplicity for them, and they really struggled with growing the psychology side of it. So the decision we made in the end was to no longer pursue the psychology side of it because for them, that was where a lot of the stress and challenge came from. And because they didn't have the experience as a psychologist themselves to really grow that side of the business. Now, maybe if they had a business owner who was a psychologist who had all of the experience in that area, they could have done that. Fantastic. But for them, they made that decision. Now, 12 months later, the business had grown beyond where it was, but now it was probably about 75% OT and 25% speech. And the stress and the issues that they were having had gone away because they felt more comfortable and more in control. And so that's just a little story about a clinic owner who added by subtraction. And we've all done this, no doubt, in all different areas of our business. We've added complexity in order to get through a plateau. But a lot of the time, we need to step back and go, what is the simplest way to solve the problem that we have? Rather than going, what is the biggest problem to solve? What is the problem we're best equipped to solve? Because one of the key things that clinic owners want, and any business owner, I would say anyway, is to decrease stress. They don't want to be more stressed, they want to be less stressed, because when you're less stressed, you tend to love your business more. You tend to love your clinic more. And when you love it more, things tend to grow. You tend to be happier. Things are better at home. Okay, so think about when you're making decisions, what is the simplest option rather than the most complex? And what is the least stressful option rather than the most stressful? And think ahead 12, 24 months and look back and go, what is the decision that I wish I made 1 year ago, 2 years ago, that if I had made that decision, I would be in a better position. I'd be in the position that I want to be right now. And consider making that a decision this month. So, my friends, I'd love you to have a look at your business and go, where have you added complexity where it should be simplicity, and look to make that change.